Daredevil Season 2, Episode 5, Kinbaku. So Elektra shows up in this episode, or at least at the end of the last episode, and we see that she's kind of coming back into Matt's life, and we get a pretty good episode, oddly enough, solely based on our relationships, but it was actually still a really fun episode, and we get to see how Matt and Elektra actually met for the first time, and how their relationship developed, literally from the very beginning, from the first time they met, to the last time they saw each other, which started with a 10-year ago span and stretched who knows how long. I would assume it was at least around a year or something like that, because they talk about knowing each other so well, and they play around like once we're married and have kids and all this stuff. So I really enjoy getting to see that, and we see how Matt's kind of dealing with these flashes now that this woman is back in his life, and how he's kind of dealing with his new relationship with Karen, which was fairly simple. They go out on their date towards the end of the episode, and there's still a ton of other stuff going on in this episode. It started once they started doing the flashbacks, they kind of kept it fairly consistent with the relationship, his former relationship, kind of how it played out and how it was really good at a point, and then how it just crashed at the end, like just instantly. And I love the way that it ended, because it was kind of the same thing with her using basically her ninja skills, and he didn't realize she was gone until he turned around. It's like, holy crap, she's gone. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. But I love how they did the flashbacks, and they go through their first meeting, and then we see them, I think maybe the very end, probably I think the last two, because I think when they went from the gym, after that was the final flashback. And it was just really well done. I really love the gym stuff, and that's where they really talk about how she knew him so well, and how basically he had, told her, like, yeah, I can see stuff, in a sense, but it's complicated. And he knew things were weird with her, and he trusted her enough to kind of reveal that. So they have like a cool little fight scene, and then they do it in the gym. And then they go to this house, which is like, alright, they're just hanging out. He's hanging out with this woman who just steals cars sometimes. Like, everything she said is like, it might be mine, it's not mine, stuff like that. So they get to this house, they're just playing around, they're just throwing glass and just basically doing illegal stuff. And we find out that ever since they had the moment at the gym, Elektra's been looking for Roscoe Sweeney, the guy who actually killed Matt's father. And that really surprised me, because I was like, alright, when she first beat up the guy, I was like, okay, that's probably just a bodyguard, so she didn't give a crap. It wasn't actually the guy, and it ended up just being someone, like security, that came to check on the house or something. So it was like, that's why she was beating him up. And then she said his name, and I was very surprised. I was like, alright, that's the guy. Then they go through, and he finds out Matt's name. I'm assuming at some point the cops actually came to that house, because they can trace the calls and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that he actually did end up getting arrested, even though Matt just like tossed the phone. But I was really curious. I was like, did he just go to jail for the rest of his life? What happened? Because they mentioned it was 10 years ago, so based on the fact that he had to use an alias, he probably went to jail for life, because they had enough evidence on him. And that's probably why it turned out okay, even though he knew Matt's name. But it was just like, this guy knows his name, he beat him up. Of course, he didn't actually end up killing him, because he would never go that far. And that's when he and Elektra realized, like, we don't know each other as well as we thought we did. For most people, it's like, oh, simple. But for this, it's like, you kill people, I don't kill people. So pretty big difference compared to most relationships. And it just ends. And here she is. She knows when he's, like, she knew he was on the rooftop before, which I thought was amazing. Of course, she has the skills to be quiet enough to where, excuse me, where he can't tell where she is, at certain points at least. At the very end, it kind of blew my mind when she, like, opened that duffel bag and his costume was in there, because when he showed up at the apartment, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is where they fought all those guys in the trailer. And I was like, I could be wrong, though. It was basically just a fancy-looking place that had some glass windows. And I was like, well, I could easily be wrong. It was just windows. Like, any place could have windows. And then she was like, do I really need to push you? And she opens it up, and it was like, okay, well, it's official. She really does know that he's Daredevil. It wasn't like she might know, might not know. Which I kind of figured once the flashback happened and he was, like, fighting with her, I was like, okay, she's able to figure out that that's him, because she just has those sort of skills, like, she knows. So it's clear that she knows officially by the end of this episode. But I really loved everything they did with Elektra in this one. I'm excited to see where they take her. We got to see her kind of suit up in her version of her outfit in this towards the end of this episode. So I'm looking forward to seeing her actually fight. Um, I'm curious. I haven't really looked into too many of the promotional pictures because I didn't want to see too much. I only looked at the trailers. But I'm assuming she's gonna have her Sai at some point in the season. So I'm looking forward to that. Although I'm not sure if they'll show up in the very next episode, which I would love to see personally. Although she does also use Sai to kill people because she stabs through people to kill them. So if she doesn't use her Sai, then we'll get just kind of a normal fight. But if she does, then we'll probably see Matt trying to stop her. But I don't know if he'd be able to. I think she might have too many skills to really take him down. And of course, he's practiced way more than he had, when they were doing the flashbacks, because they showed in the first season after he dated her and everything, he'd still gone through college. He graduated. They were about to graduate or whatever during that final flashback, and that's when he beat that guy up. So he'd been training like really a little bit before then as well. But after that, he like really picked up all the training. So they'd be at a different level, but considering she knew capoeira and Muay Thai, and I'm sure who knows how many other different forms of martial arts. I'm still not sure I don't think they'd ever have to actually go one-on-one with each other, but I don't know. I feel like he wouldn't be able to really take her down because of how varied her skills truly are. So looking forward to where, even if they don't have to fight each other, them fighting in general should look pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that. Once again, Karen is doing the private eye thing. She's getting more answers about Frank. And also there's a little reference. They flat out say Jessica Jones in this episode, which I thought was cool. But we got Karen going back to, I forgot the name of the newspaper, but she goes to the newspaper that Ben used to work for. She finds his boss, and she's going through all these old newspapers, and she gets information which shows us why Punisher was going after these three gangs. It wasn't just like, he kills villains, which he does. We saw that in several different parts where it was random people that were just bad guys that he killed. But we find out that the three gangs had like a gang shootout, and they were just like destroying each other, and in the crossfire was Frank's family, and he was shot in the head as well during that massacre. So his family was completely wiped out, and that explained why he asked the guy like who is there, because it's like what people specifically were at this thing. So we got the answer to that. So that was very cool, and Karen has to go confirm it now so that she can kind of fight off the DA and kind of get her off of their backs, because now that they have the Punisher, that's her ticket. Like, she's trying to use that. Well, I think it was kind of obvious. I knew it. I figured that they didn't put it in there, but I was like, I feel like based on how she is as a character, I think she's gonna, she'd be the type of person that would try to run for office. And then it's like she's trying to use this to run for mayor, and I was like, that seems exactly like what would happen. So I wasn't surprised, just like Foggy wasn't, like, yeah, that seems pretty obvious to me. But she's kind of crushing them at this point. Like, she has what she needs, and they need to kind of break that down. They need to show, like, hey, he has this medal, which we find out is actually secret, which I thought was very interesting, and that might explain the whole feds thing, the people coming in with the suits and stuff. So the medal that he got, which apparently is only second to the Medal of Honor, was completely in secret. His family and history, everything like that is like completely wiped away. So there's a lot to that. That's not just, oh, Frank, left his family or anything. They're basically like wiped away. Like, none of that stuff ever happened. Like, they knew he served, or they knew he enlisted, but basically the guy was like, there's pretty much nothing that says he ever technically served. And that says a lot. Like, when all of that stuff is wiped away, that says a lot. Like, it's either redacted or just flat out wiped away. And I think you can find something that's redacted, because it's not as hidden as something that's clearly completely erased, although it would be almost impossible for some random person to get like a redacted file or anything like that. But that I thought was very interesting. So we get kind of the answer as to why he went after these three people. I thought it was just because he was the Punisher. He goes after villains. That's what he does. And they were just the big gang, so he's taking out the gangs first and then kind of getting the smaller people here and there. But it turns out this is completely for revenge, and he's going to be in the next episode. I saw like the little thumbnail, so he's already showing up again in the next episode, so I'm looking forward to that. Very excited for this fight scene, which I'm assuming is going to be the very beginning of the next episode, but I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below, let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And this is, with this being the first episode that really shows Elektra who she was in the past, basically that she's kind of the same right now, just, trying to get her father's money back. I definitely want to know what you guys think about her representation in this version of Daredevil. I don't know too much about Elektra, but I like what they did with her character. I thought it was pretty interesting that she, she showed such an insane amount of love towards Matt, but ultimately it came down to, you need to kill him to get revenge, and because Matt wouldn't do that, that's why she left him. And it's very interesting that someone would leave you because you didn't kill a guy. So it says a lot about her character. It's very interesting. It's like she will, when she feels someone, she's a lot like Punisher, and I feel like that's kind of her role. She's the more personal connection to Matt, because Punisher's just this guy who's telling them, like, these are bad guys, they should die. But Elektra comes in and says it, and it's still the same thing. He's not going to switch, but she can definitely do it a lot easier without him instantly, like, shutting down and, fighting back. It's a little bit harder, and he basically admits he got manipulated, coming to her apartment towards the end of the night and everything like that, because that's what she does. So I like how they showed her character. Very excited to see her fight in the next episode. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about her kind of first full episode and this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.